Hi, and welcome to this video. I'm going to talk about all the new releases from February 2023 that I actually read. And here it is. I'm Olivia, your new favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. First up is Portrait of the Duke by Alexa Aston. It is book one of the Suddenly a Duke series, and it is available on Kindle Unlimited. We start with an adorable prologue with a teenager who's quite outspoken. She is warning away one of her spoiled sister suitors and letting him know, you just aren't a real contender because you're just a viscount and not high enough up for my sister to actively consider you. So, despite the age gap and both of them being quite young, there's a spark of chemistry between them. 10 years later, Lady Margaret is finally ready to make her debut after caring for her ill mother, mourning her mother's death, and then mourning her father's death. However, Margaret has no intention to marry. She just wants to build a business painting portraits. Our young Viscount Daniel is now a duke. He's looking to marry this season. A few years ago, he had sought out Margaret, but she was nowhere to be found. As he sees her again in the present, he finds out there's an existing connection between their grandmothers who had been friends in their youth. Now, Daniel's grandmother is the best wingwoman around, making sure to keep Margaret close by and supporting her art. This was a relatively low angst book with instant attraction between our main characters. Um, we do still see the spoiled sister in the background, but she doesn't interfere too badly. This is a great book if you're looking for an easy read and a good time. Curled Up with an Earl by Amy Rose Bennett is book two of the Byronic Book Club series. So Will is an earl and a duke's heir, but he's estranged from his duke of a grandfather. Right now, he is serving as a spy for the Scotland Yard. He is investigating a botanical expert on poisonous plants to determine if that person is responsible for the murder of another nobleman. So he poses as groom on the estate to do so. However, he's instantly smitten by Lucy, the daughter of the botanical baron, who also serves as a botanical expert in her own right. She's preoccupied with her own bluestocking studies. She has a desire to travel. She's also trying to look over her father's financially floundering estate and trying to locate her brother, who is estranged from her father. I enjoyed watching Lucy and Will interact with each other. They're both nervous and smitten. I also enjoyed seeing them team up, and there was open honesty between them by about the midpoint of the book. The romance plot was pretty low angst. There's no third act breakup between our two, but we do get to find out why Lucy's brother was essentially banished, and we do find the culprit of the poisoning plant murder. Love a Lady at Midnight by Charlie Lane is book four of the Cavendish family series. Now, we have met Jackson and Gwendolyn a few times in previous books of the series as research assistants to Henry, the explorer and adventurer and archaeologist. Henry's book is book one, and he's the patriarch of the Cavendish family. Jackson and Gwendolyn have always been shown to be bantering and possibly flirting throughout the series, so now we finally get to see their relationship come to a point and learn why Gwendolyn was found as a stowaway in one of Henry's ships once upon a time. Jackson is very obvious in his desire to woo and wed Gwendolyn, and she's the one who is resistant and protective of her secrets. We learn early on in the book that Gwendolyn believed she was married, but the man turned out to be a bigamist, and so Gwendolyn was ruined and ostracized in London society. Her family was completely horrible and cast her out after the scandal, even though they were the ones to arrange the marriage. And her supposed father in law thought he was going to make her his mistress and sent lots of threatening letters. So she ran away and reinvented her identity. Now, for as long as they've known her, the Cavendish family has believed Gwendolyn to be holding on to some secrets. But as supportive as they haven't pushed her and just tried to be friendly towards her. Jackson has been waiting patiently for his opportunity to court her and really, at this point, needs to know why she keeps refusing him. In the background, there's the plot about Jackson visiting his family estate for the first time in many years since his parents died, but he pretty much had a happy childhood and upbringing, so it's fairly low drama on that front. And of course, when Gwendolyn finally reveals her secrets, the Cavendishes react exactly how you would expect them to react: loving and supportive. I really like this one and would definitely recommend. Only the Valet Will Do by Sophie Barnes is a standalone novella. Lady Liliana has a meet cute with her brother's valet in the woods and feels an instant connection with him. Unfortunately, the disparity in their stations means that it won't work out and she should stay away from him. However, he may be more eligible than he seems. Tristan is part of the landed gentry and is considered a gentleman, but his father's gambling debts have forced him to seek out employment. Hiding his true identity, he becomes a valet to a viscount and meets his sister Liliana. Tristan has very little to offer with his diminished circumstances, so he also tries to stay away from the lady. But this is a novella, so it works out pretty quickly and neatly. It's an enjoyable read if you need a low angst bit of fluff. The Duke's Secret Cinderella by Eva Devon is book 3 of the Never a Wallflower series. While this book is part of a series, it reads completely standalone with no apparent connection to the other books in the series. This one starts off a lot like the movie Ever After. That's that Cinderella movie retelling from 1998 starring Drew Barrymore and is one of my favorite movies ever. Charlotte is the servant of the house who schemes with her beloved stepsister to dress nicely and go down to the prison to free her servant. While there, she meets Rafe, a duke whose mother has decreed that he should marry. They part ways before she can tell him her name, but when he comes to her home to call on her stepsister, she somehow gets introduced as a lady and a cousin. Rafe is smitten with Charlotte the whole way through and is determined to make her his duchess, but she's resistant because of the punishments she'll face from her stepfather if she is seen to be usurping her stepsister's place. This book was delightful with how straightforward Rafe is with his feelings and how his mother and grandmother are completely supportive. It makes a nice contrast to how evil and scheming Charlotte's stepfather is. The Counterfeit Scoundrel by Lorraine Heath is book 1 of the Chessman series. Now, this is connected to the previous series because our guy is friends with the Duke from the Duchess Hunt. We have another servant in disguise story here with Daisy slash Marguerite posing as a maid in Bishop's house to catch her client's wife having an affair. Of course, with Daisy's skills of observation, something doesn't seem quite right. Although Bishop certainly seems to entertain a revolving door of married ladies, we find that he falsifies these affairs to help the women secure a divorce. While Daisy and Bishop seem to have opposing purposes at first, they uncover each other's motives and truths by about the midpoint of the book. After that, we see Bishop being suspected of murdering one of the husbands, and so he needs to hire Daisy as an investigator on his behalf. The plot twists on the mystery part were a lot of fun to read. The romance part was fairly predictable, but in an enjoyable way. Overall, I really liked this book, and it was refreshingly pretty low angst for Lorraine Heath. Never Seduce a Duke by Vivienne LORRET is book 5 of the Mating Habits of Scoundrels series. This one makes more sense if you have already read book 3 of the series, which is The Wrong Marquess. Meg is the younger sister of the male main character of that book, and she's traveling on holiday with the spinsterly aunts of the female main character of that book. So after having her heart broken, Meg is intent on having a grand holiday, possibly flirtation, before returning to her brother's home to stay a spinster. However, the meddlesome aunts are at their recipe stealing antics again and somehow get entangled with a surly hermit of a Duke, Lucian. His family relic, a recipe book covered in jewels and myths, has disappeared at the same time that Meg is caught trespassing in his home. So he chases her across her European vacation to find the recipe book. Lucian seems to think that Meg is the seductive and mysterious Lady Avalon, known to be a thief, while Meg, who has been fresh faced and overlooked by gentlemen, is flattered by his attentions. The banter and flirtation and fighting goes on for like half the book. It's a little bit tedious some of the time, with them misunderstanding each other and him just being stubborn and stoic. When they finally come together and perhaps the truth might be uncovered, there's another set of miscommunications that keeps them separated. And from Lucian never knowing Meg's real name or identity. And as the summary alludes to, Meg ends up pregnant from their encounter. Though the front half of the book moved pretty slowly and tediously, the pace of the plot picks up in the back half of the book when I turned the page and there was a time jump and I literally gasped because I was like, "Wait, what?" Um, so we find out what happens then, and we do ultimately find out the identity of Lady Avalon. The Wolf and the Wildflower by Stacey Reid is a standalone novel and one of my favorites of the month. We've got a tragic background for both the characters here in the story, and it makes for an unbelievable connection between these two. Jules has lived her entire life as a man despite being born a girl. Her mother had endured difficult childbirths and was warned against having more children, but her father was insistent on a son. So her mother and midwife presented the baby as a son so that she can find relief from marital relations and pregnancy. Yikes. James, the son of a duke, was lost in the Canadian wilderness and mountains at the age of 18 and survived there alone for 10 years before his rescue and return. Now that he's back in England and the duke, his mother is concerned that he's addled and savage. Basically, he's just survived alone in the wilderness. And no, of course, he's not the same lovey-dovey, joyful boy you knew before. Jules and her father are both mind doctors hired by James's mother to assess the man and fix his behavior. Of course, Jules is the one who understands his plight and his need for isolation and quiet amongst his busybody chattering family. James also is able to see through Jules's disguise with his heightened senses and awareness, and he has been the only one to truly see her in her whole life. The quiet moments where these two are alone are really the only times that they can be themselves without the judgments of aristocratic society or putting on an act. It is sweet and emotional, and this book is like just the right amount of teary. This is probably my favorite Stacey Reid book ever thus far, and I have read and enjoyed all of her historical romances. So I'm going to say that's it. Says a lot, and I really recommend this one. Overall, it was a great month of new releases. Thank you so much for watching this video. Links to all of the books are in the description box. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.